Good evening, everyone. My name is Gretchen Putnam. I'm managing editor for the Eagle Tribune, and I'd like to welcome you all tonight to Mann Orchards and to EagleTribune.com for this mayoral debate before Tuesday's primary. Before we get started, I would really like to introduce and thank the Fitzgerald family. Are they around? Yes. Oh my gosh, you just came out of the ladies' room. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill, for hosting tonight. Again, a great place for an event like this, and thank you so much for being host. I would also like to thank the people at MCTV. They have provided us with the video equipment to make this event available and provided courtesy of Methuen Community Television. This production was set up and crewed entirely by MCTV volunteers. We could have not done this without them, so let's give them a round of applause. I would also like to thank our panelists. We have from Politically Active Media, we have George Sione. We have Alicia Preston from the Preston Group. And we have current Mayor Bill Manzi. We'll see what he throws out there tonight for these four. I'd also like to thank my staff at the Eagle Tribune, and that would be reporter Brian Messenger, as well as Paul Bilodeau, to get this up live. I'm sorry, rudely interrupted there. From EagleTribune.com, which this is being broadcast live on right now. And also for those people who are watching this at home, or for people who are in the room and want to use their cell phones, you can tweet us questions using hashtag Methuen Votes. That's the # for those who aren't familiar with Twitter, but it's Methuen Votes. And let's get started. We're going to introduce our candidates. First of all, we have City Councilor Jack Cronin. We have Al DiNuccio. We have School Committeeman Ken Willett and City Councilor Steve Zani. Now, to go over the format very quickly, we're going to give each of the candidates 30 seconds for opening remarks, which is very quick, so you guys got to get a lot of information out there fast. Then the panelists are going to be asking questions. They can ask questions of either the entire panel or a candidate specifically. Each candidate has 1 minute to answer, and other candidates who want to respond have 30 seconds of response time. After that will last about 30 to 35 minutes. After that, we will allow the candidates to ask one another questions. The rules will be the same, that each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question, and the questioner will have 30 seconds to respond, and anybody else who would like to jump in, if I feel nice, I will let you do so. All right, with that, we're going to start. We're going to start opening remarks with Mr. Cronin, and Mr. Zani will get the closing statement, which will start at 1 minute. We'll start with you for the closing statement, so we'll go this way and that way. So, Mr. Cronin, if you'd like to start, you have 30 seconds.
Okay. I'd like to thank both the Eagle Tribune and Mann's, and also MCTV. And before I get started, we had an incident in City Hall last night. I want to give my condolences to the Carmen Mealy family who had a tragic incident at City Hall last night. My name is Jack Cronin. I have about 30 years experience in Methuen government. I've lived at 33 Richard Avenue with my wife of 49 years for about 49 years. So when we moved to Methuen.
All right, I'm sorry, Jack. That
Okay.
30 seconds was quick. Mr. DiNuccio, you have 30 seconds.
I'm running for Mayor Methuen because I believe in better for Methuen. I believe leadership is a key issue in this election. I'm a leader who will bring trust and honesty. I'm hardworking and dedicated. I will bring a positive and energetic approach to the resolve of difficult issues that face Methuen today. I believe I'm the only candidate that has the right leadership qualities, business expertise, and many years of community development and public safety experience within the city of Methuen. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Willett.
Hi, my name is Ken Willett, running for Mayor of Methuen. I would be remiss if I didn't say hi to my wife, Dawn, and my two kids, Brady and Kendall, here this evening. You'll hear buzzwords tonight: leadership, positive, integrity. The issue that you want to hear tonight and have the candidates talk about is solutions. What are their solutions? We should have content, issues-oriented solutions for discussion tonight. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Zani.
Thank you. I have a long record of public service and have served as president and chairman of many organizations. I have also given a lifelong commitment to countless volunteer activities. My master's degree in administration, a successful professional career, a strong record of public service have prepared me to be the leader necessary to give Methuen the government it deserves during these difficult economic times. With your help and vote, we can work together toward making Methuen a better place for all. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statements. Now we'll go to George Cioni with his first question of the night.
We'll open up with a question for all four candidates. We can start with Mr. Willett. This comes from a constituent, Tom Firth of Methuen. Do you favor joining secure communities, which could lead to deportation of illegal aliens arrested by Methuen police force?
Absolutely, positively endorse secure communities. We had 2 incidents, one in Milford, Massachusetts, where a drunk driver, illegal alien with a long rap sheet, killed a young man, forever tarnishing his life and his family's life. In Lawrence, triple homicide, another person with a long rap sheet. The governor is playing games with secure communities. We should have secure communities in place. We have 90,000 people apprehended with long rap sheets. They serve their sentences and then they're deported. We should absolutely join secure communities. Thank you. Great question.
Mr. Zani, would you like a minute to respond?
I definitely agree with the question and also with the answer that my fellow opponent gave. And I think everybody knows that that's the right answer to give. I think the end result of this is, of course, secure communities for all, and Methuen, it definitely is needed as well. So I definitely support what that question was. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cronin, would you like a minute to respond?
Well, there's nothing much more I can say, but I do agree with both the other candidates. I believe that we definitely need police, fire, everything, everywhere we can get. And if we need help, we can call them in. If they need help, we can go with them. So I definitely agree.
Mr. Nuccio, you have a minute.
Yes, ESCOM, Secure Communities, ESCOM, absolutely a fan of it. It has to go nationwide by 2013 anyways. The governor cannot pull out of it. We have to do that. He's claiming he can pull out. He's not allowed to pull out. I'd like to take it a step further. I'm a big fan of e-verification. E-verification, what it is, I'm an employer. All my employees have to be e-verified with the IRS to prove that they have citizenship. What I'd like to do in the city of Methuen, where we have a lot more control, is force every one of our landlords to e-verify their tenants. And this has been upheld in Pennsylvania in the Supreme Court. It's perfectly legal to do this. Most of your illegal immigrants, they don't tend to buy houses. What they do is they rent. And they're renting, and they're under the radar, and their kids are in our schools, and they just don't belong here. E-verification would stop all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nuccio. Okay, we're going to move on to Alicia Preston. You have the next question.
Mr. Zani, this question is directed to you. Your latest campaign flyer that went out said, and I quote, "It may be popular to build a campaign around a cost-cutting agenda that's long on promises but short on details." End quote. Could you please point out which of your opponents you are referring to and what details they're short on?
Well, I'm actually, if we're looking at the candidates, I actually would pinpoint Mr. D'Annunzio. The most important part of that is he talks about zero-based budget. And when you talk about zero-based budget, he doesn't understand what Chapter 44 of the state law states. There is a mandate. When you have pensions, when you have health insurance, when you have fixed costs, you cannot do away with that. A zero-based budget, what he's talking about is basically what you'd have to do is fire the entire city and then start from scratch. So if he looked at the law at Chapter 44, that's the detail I'm talking about in order to have fair government. So what he's espousing to is something that cannot be done.
Mr. D'Annunzio, would you like 30 seconds to respond?
Actually, they do it in Boston. It is zero-based budgets. It's up and coming. You're going to see more of it happening. What we do is right now we start at the last year's budget and add to it. Zero-based budgets is we start from zero at the beginning of the year. Everybody has to account for what their budget is in there, what's in their budget. They build the budget from zero. This does several things. What it does is, it starts to build data. Year one, maybe you don't see a lot of savings, but year two, now the department heads have to start proving themselves. They have to prove the data that they built their budget on. We have no data, we have no statistics in Methuen. That's the only way we're going to have accountability. You hear the buzzword accountability all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Nuccio. Would any of the other candidates like to respond to that? All right, Mr. Willett, you have 30
briefly.
seconds.
Steve and Jack talk about formulas. So it's almost like they're justifying the tax increase because they're obligated by the state. We need leadership locally to make the cuts, whether it's the GIC with the health insurance plan or concessions from the unions. We need courage at the local level, not talk about formulas. Thank you.
Mr. Cronin, you want 30 seconds, too?
Sure. Well,
You want to
first of
steal
all,
the mic from Mr. Nuccio?
First of all, it's very hard to have a zero-based budget when you're starting your budget. Before you open the first page, you owe $36 million. So it's hard to start from zero. I'm not trying to justify any tax increase. Any tax, we can cut taxes any way you want to. You want to cut your trash service, we can cut it. But it's up to the mayor to make a determination which programs that he has to keep, or wants to keep, which programs benefit the voting taxpayer and all the residents, and where he's
Mr.
going to
Cronin,
make
your
the
time
cuts.
is up. Can I go to Bill
Can I
Manzi?
read? I was asked a question. Or I was the brunt of the question.
Yeah, but you know what?
Real
Then I'm
quick.
going to have to give everybody a chance. You can bring it up in your closing argument. Let's go to Bill Manzi with the next question.
Okay, the question is for Al Denuncio.
Sure,
So you get the mic, Al. You have advocated for a local option meals tax. Do you believe that such a tax might hurt the local restaurant trade?
Okay. We've done our own studies on the use tax, the use meals tax. Our studies say that 80% of the people frequenting our restaurants in Methuen are not from Methuen. They're from Haverhill, they're from North Andover, from Andover, they're highway traffic. We all talk about how the location of Methuen is very important. We have 495, 93 to 213 connector, and we filled our city up with a lot of restaurants. So the state of Massachusetts takes away our municipal aid, turns around and says, but we're going to give you a tool to make up the difference, which is the meals use tax, which is only less than 1 cent per dollar. Boston last year made $18 million of free money from outside people coming to their city to eat, which is what I want to do in Methuen, is have outside people help pay for our fire department. I'd love someone from Andover to help pay for our police department, or someone from North Andover to help pay for our
Mr.
DPW.
Nuccio, you're out of time. I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Can I ask would any of the other candidates? Mr. Willett.
Very briefly, I think when you increase taxes, you're encouraging a race to the bottom. Haverhill implemented that 1% leverage against 1% levy against consumers. Salem, New Hampshire has a higher meals tax. We should be advertising that to the entire area as opposed to having a race to the bottom. Thank you.
Would any other candidates? Mr. Zani?
I think that's one of the things I've talked about, is namely, when the individual says, no new tax. A meals tax is a tax. Whether you realize that or not, it is a tax. Methuen has a preponderance of very good restaurants, and if you ask the business community here in Methuen, they do not want to see a meals tax at all. And that's what brings people, whether they come from Haverhill, whether they come from Boston, whether they come from New Hampshire. It's very good for the business district here in our community. So I definitely don't understand in terms of his comment about no new tax, but I like a meals tax.
Do I get to rebut?
All right, Mr. Cronin, you have 30 seconds.
Yes. Just briefly, about a year and a half ago, I brought this up before City Council. We did our own study, calling in numerous people from the public, calling all the restaurants and inviting them to meetings. And when we got through with our study, we determined it was not worth bringing forward. A tax is a tax, and we did not want to implement.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nuccio, you do have 30 seconds.
Okay, our study says it raises about $500,000 for the city of Methuen. What we're willing to do is take the first $400,000 of that and give it back to the business in the form of a tax cut. So we're going to take our commercial rate and drop it by 60 cents per thousand, help attract more businesses here and take the edge off of the businesses. Even though they're not paying for it, they do have to file paperwork to get us the money. So everything over $400,000 we will keep as a city. Everything from up to $400,000 goes back to the business community because we do have the highest commercial rate in the valley.
Thank you, Mr. DiNuccio. Our next question comes from George Sionia, politically active.
This question is directed to Mr. Cronin. You were a member of the Charter Commission, which split badly over the issue of term limits. Are you for or against term limits, and why couldn't you build consensus on that issue on the Charter Commission?
Well, there was consensus built, and it was a 5-4 vote. So 5 people voted to put on the ballot that there need not be term limits. So the 2 questions that will be on the ballot, 1 question will be on the ballot. If it passes, there will be no term limits. If it doesn't pass, term limits will stay as they are now. So the people have a choice. No term limit, I'll leave it the way it is.
I'd like to do a
Would you like to
follow-up.
ask a follow-up? Go ahead.
To Mr. Ouellette. I know you have been on the record, whether it's on the radio or TV show, Politically Active, and I think you're out in the public saying that you are for term limits. You mentioned tonight taking leadership and courage. You've made a career, as people would say, of bouncing back and forth, and now you're running for mayor. Do you think it would show leadership and courage to be a leader on this issue and not run again for office?
To answer your question, I maxed out on city council for 6 years. I will not serve again for city councilor. I maxed out in school committee. I will not return back to the school committee. I'm running for mayor of Methuen. The first item on the agenda, promise, home rule petition, permanent term limits. Let's push the issue to rest. Okay? I will serve 6 years, and that will be it. It will be up to the voters every 2 years. But to say you have members of Congress that should have term limits as well, okay? I walk the walk and talk the talk. Thank you.
All right. In light of the fact that we've given some candidates here a little extra time, Mr. Cronin, you have first shot. You have a minute.
Could I answer the previous question? I didn't have an opportunity to answer.
Either, yeah. We didn't get to rebut the original
either
question.
we have an
All
opportunity.
right. Let's start with the original question then. All right.
On the charter. I mean, the question was asked. I thought we had equal
We
opportunity
get to-
to answer.
We do have equal opportunity, but we're going to start with Mr. Cronin. Oh, no, he answered the question, so let's go to Mr. DiNuccio. I'm sorry.
Okay, 100% in favor of term limits. As a matter of fact, on my headquarters in Methuen Square, we are proudly posting the vote no on the Charter Commission sign. Unfortunately, there's some good stuff in the Charter Commission, but it's all going to get thrown out with the bathwater because of the term limits question being on there. So I am voting no on the Charter Commission, on the Charter question, because the term limits question is on there. I want to keep term limits in Methuen.
Okay, Mr. Zani, you have 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. The Charter Commission, as far as what occurred, just realize we're going to go back to the way it is currently. A waste of time, a waste of effort. You had individuals that would not compromise in that group. When you don't compromise and reach a solution, this is what happens. So we're going to waste $20,000 to $30,000 on a question that could have been addressed before. So what's going to happen is this. If you vote against the charter, then of course we're going to stay just the way it is right now. If you vote for the charter, there are no term limits.
Okay, Mr. Zani, you're out of time.
And I am for term limits.
You are out of time. Mr. Cronin, since the question was directed at you to begin with, would you like 30 seconds to respond to these guys?
Yeah. Sure. Basically, it was simple. It was our job to give the voters a choice, and that's what we did. We gave them a choice of no term limits, and we gave them a choice to let it stay as it is. That's the only way we could do it, because you could not put 3 questions on the ballot by law. You can only put one option. Term limits, no term limits. And that's the way it had to go.
No, we're going to move on. I think we've...
They will answer on the charter at all.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Ouellette. You've got 30 seconds, but that's the end of this question,
Absolutely.
okay?
Very quickly, specifically on the charter.
On the charter.
I don't want to poo-poo the charter. There were many good ideas that were forwarded by the Charter Commission. Everything was grouped together. So as the mayor, I want to sit down with the residents of Methuen. We were talking about audits and managerial studies and a lot of great ideas that were encapsulated in the charter. I want to sit down, work with the incoming city councilors, and have legislation drafted and approved that would have those ideas implemented. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to our next question from Ms. Preston.
This question is directed toward you, Mr. Willett. You have said several times, including this evening, that you're opposed to tax increases. Taxes and spending clearly go hand in hand. However, you voted for the last school budget, which increased city costs by $500,000 from mandated net school spending and $500,000 for a new high school. Should you have instead to stick with the tax decreases or not increasing them, just voted to cut $1 million?
I just want to emphasize is that I have voted for tax increases in the past, but I'm the only one on this panel who's repeatedly voted against tax increases. My first year as a city councilor, my second year as a city councilor, I voted against tax increases. I voted against inflated budgets. The last budget that I really voted against was fiscal year 2006. Okay, had $4 million in one-time revenue. That was the most structurally unbalanced budget in the history of Methuen. I was proud to vote against that. I worked with incoming mayor at the time, Bill Manzi, to have sound, honest budgeting, and then we had concessions from the unions. In that crisis, when you had workers give up 10%, and have a modest tax increase, that's a compromise I'm willing to take. So I have a history of voting against tax increases. I'm very proud of that record.
Mr. Willett, your time is up. Would any of the other candidates like 30 seconds to respond? All right, Mr. DiNuccio.
My tax pledge. As mayor, I will not present a budget to the city council that requires a property tax increase, period.
Those are easy statements to make, but now I am asking you to back it up and tell us how you're going to do it.
Go ahead, Mr. DiNuccio.
Okay, we're going to do it 3 ways.
You got
Zero-based
30
budgets,
seconds.
zero-based budgets, cost and efficiency analysis to cut the waste, and we're going to bring in new revenue. We're going to expand our business base. We're going to look for new revenues. Our use meals tax is one of them. There's all kinds of new revenues out there right now. We got to get our grant assessment program going. We do not have a grant assessment program going in the city of Methuen. We're willy-nilly all over the place with our grants. We have an idea for bringing them all under one roof. When a grant runs out, we're going to know if we're going to spend more money on it.
Mr. DiNuccio, your time is up. Mr. Zani.
Thank you.
This idea of bringing new growth, new jobs, there are two things that have to happen, not only in the Merrimack Valley, but in our country. The first thing that has to happen is stopping the outsourcing of jobs overseas. That's number one. The second thing deals with foreign aid. We're spending an awful lot on foreign aid. Yes, we have to spend some, but some of it should be saved here. When you talk about the outsourcing of positions or jobs and you give tax credits, those companies will come back, and that will have an effect not only on Massachusetts, but other states as well. Those are two things. People talk jobs, jobs, and jobs. The jobs are not going to come
Mr. Zani,
until
your
that's done.
time is up. Mr. Willett, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I didn't know we were running for Congress here tonight. Very quickly with Al, a use tax is similar to a bus fee, an athletic fee for the schools. The easy way out, a lot of communities, they implement a bus fee, a user fee for athletics. The meals tax is an easy way out. Let's not penalize businesses. Let's reward businesses. Let's advertise. New Hampshire is more for the meals tax. Haverhill implemented a 1% meals tax
Mr. Willett,
increase.
your time is up.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Bill Manzi, you have the next question.
Thank you. This question is for all the candidates, and we'll let Gretchen pick who starts. Methuen's municipal unions have now gone 3 years without any raise or cost of living adjustment. My question is two-part. If elected, will you negotiate with the city-side unions directly, or will you delegate that task to someone else? And secondly, would you anticipate offering any cost of living adjustments to city employees during your first term of office?
Mr. Zani, you have 1 minute.
I think, first of all, I definitely will negotiate with the unions. I think they've taken a 10% cut over the past 2 years, as we know. They now have their present salary, which they had from 2 years ago. Do we want to increase? We really don't want to increase. I think that's something we want to sit down. I want to look at contracts. There are gives and take in contracts. I think there is something they have to give. Example, if you look at DPW, they gave up longevity. in order to get the slight increase they got. So I think it's important that you negotiate reasonably, but you have to sit down. They're a great working force. Our police, our fire department, and the other workers in the city work very hard, keeping in mind that 5 years ago, the DPW had $1 million more than they do today. So you work smarter and wiser.
Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I would definitely negotiate with the unions. I would not do it by myself. I would have the human resource officer, if there is one, with me, along with the city attorney, because as far as I'm concerned, the fine words that are put in a contract sometimes can mean $100,000 or $200,000. As Councilor Zani said, the unions have gone 2 years with a 10% cut, never mind a raise. So we have to be fair with everybody. The contracts that were put before us this year would have generated another $850,000 worth of tax increases to the public, which is why I voted no.
Thank you. Mr. DiNuccio, you have 1 minute.
One of the things I did admire about your mayoralship, Mr. Mayor, is that you did negotiate your own contracts, and I will do the same. I like that. The senior citizens haven't had an increase in Social Security in many years. I have several town employees, city employees, that work on my campaign directly, and they'll tell you they're well compensated in the city of Methuen. We have very high salaries. We pay our employees. They're well compensated. There's no complaints from city employees on what they're making. I'm not a big fan of 3-year contracts. Years ago, we gave 3-year contracts because we didn't want to lose people to other cities. So we gave them 3 years to stay here. In this economy, we should be giving 1-year contracts only, and I don't mind doing the extra work negotiating them every year.
Thank you, Mr. DiNuccio. Would anyone like 30 seconds to respond, or should we move on to the next question? Since only Ken's answering, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna ask George to come up with the next question, please.
This question is actually directed towards Al. Mr. DiNuccio, I'm sorry. Municipal outsourcing of services has been discussed during the course of the campaign. Are you for or against outsourcing work currently done by municipal employees?
Everything is on the table. When I say we're going to do a cost and efficiency analysis in the city of Methuen, I mean we're going to do a cost and efficiency analysis in the city of Methuen. There's no sacred cows. I'll tell you a quick story. The Methuen Firefighters Union is calling all the other local unions up to convince their members who live in Methuen not to vote for me, because all I want to do is study them. That says something there. They don't even want us looking at them. What's going on here, people? This is our city. I think we have a right to study every corner of the city. And if, you know what, we're not getting the bang for our buck, then we need to go someplace else. What is wrong with us not doing that? What is wrong with these people not even allowing us to look at them? There's something wrong. What is that message? I don't like it. I'm going to look everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. DiNuccio. Would anyone like to respond? All right, Mr. Cronin, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, quite frankly, the Methuen Fire Department is very concerned with Mr. DiNuccio because he wants to privatize the ambulance service. The ambulance service brought in $1,178,000 last year. And in order to make up that loss of revenue, if he does privatize it, you're going to have to lay off 32 firefighters, 24 to each to make the $1,200,000, and another 8, because for every 3 people you lay off, you have to lay off 1 more to cover your cost of unemployment. So that's 32 firefighters will be laid off if he privatizes the ambulance service.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. Would anyone else like to respond? Mr. Zani.
Let's take that just one step further, Jack, what you're stating. Look at the fire department as an example. The comment was not study. The comment was want to privatize. That was the comment he used. Again, you change words. The second part deals with what did Methuen do as far as the fire department. They brought in $1.2 million this year. We pay the firefighters a total with their cost of living along with their overtime, $750,000. The revenue that came into the city this year was over $400,000 that went into the city coffers. When you talk about privatization and you bring in another company in, you now have to look at how many firemen you're going to lay off to meet that goal.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. Sorry, Mr. Zani. Mr. Willett, would you like to respond?
Thank you. I'm a full advocate for managerial studies at the police and fire department. The last time it was done for the police department was in 1998. That should be done. There were recommendations in that report that should be updated and expanded upon. So that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. Mr. DiNuccio, you have 30 seconds.
$500. That's what the gentleman to my right and the gentleman at the end got from the Firemen's Union. $500. That's why their remarks are there. They're being bought for $500, folks.
Yes, go ahead. All right, well, we'll give this one was a good one, so let's let everybody respond. Mr. Zani, you have 20 seconds.
I want to be respectful. The truth of the matter is, no one's buying me for $500. Maybe they're buying you for $500. The end result is the fire department, along with a lot of other people, have confidence in me, and that's why they've been donating to my campaign. And I appreciate that, and I'm humbled by their confidence in me. So I think I take a little bit umbrage of what your comment is.
Mr. Zani, your time is up. Mr. Cronin, you wanted to respond.
Well, I, for one, am proud to have gotten a contribution for the fire department because I am proud of our fire department and what they do every day. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Nuccio, you're going around telling people while you're campaigning you're going to put in new sidewalks for their house in exchange for their vote.
Really?
You did,
All
yes.
right, thank you, Mr. Cronin.
And
All
I'll
right.
bring you right to the guy's house that you promised. And I don't know how many of those
All right,
you promised.
Mr. Willett, it's your turn. You have 20 seconds.
Very, very briefly, that's my agenda. It's been advertised in a rival newspaper, in the Tribune, and other newspapers. Anytime you want to talk about my agenda, it's right there. I'm transparent. I'm not going to attack Mr. Zani. I'm not going to attack Mr. Cronin. I'm not going to attack Mr. DiNuccio. You know why? Because those aren't solutions. Thank you.
Mr. DiNuccio, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you want to respond.
Oh, okay, sure. I thought you were going to the next question. I apologize.
I can.
I wish you would.
Listen, all I said, folks, the problem with the city here is all I said, and you could look it up, it's public information, is that I want to study the ambulance. That's it. I didn't say I was privatizing anything. I just want to look. How can I privatize something unless I get in the city hall and look in the file drawers and see what's going on? All I did was say I want to look at it, and everybody flipped out.
Thank you, Mr. DiNuccio. Let's move on to Ms.
one more statement
No,
to
we're going to move on. Ms. Preston, you have the next question.
Thank you, Gretchen. Mr. Zani, as a former school administrator, do you support modifying the requirement that all high school students receive a passing MCAS score in order to graduate? In other words, do you support requiring them to know the minimum standards before getting a diploma?
We definitely have to make our curriculum rigorous. In today's economy, you have to keep in mind we need skilled workers. Right now, there are 3 million jobs out there available, but we do not have the skilled workers or the students that are trained for those positions. So I definitely support a rigorous curriculum. I support us in terms of the evaluation process at the high school level, and I think our standards have to be in that direction.
May I follow, Gretchen? May I follow? Just for clarity, so you do not support legislation that would not make students pass the MCAS to get a diploma?
Definitely support it, of course.
All right, Mr. Cronin, you have 30 seconds.
I'm not sure. I couldn't quite hear your question. Support the legislation that
would modify
modify
existing laws so that students would not have to pass an MCAS in order to get a diploma.
I didn't understand. I didn't hear that part of the question. I would not support that at all.
I would agree with Councilor Zani. I would not support that.
Mr. DiNuccio, 30 seconds.
Our MCAS system's been around for a while now, and it's actually doing well because what it's doing is getting data. It's been getting data for many years, and it's getting better every day. I'm not in favor of dumbing down the students of Massachusetts to a national standard because that's exactly what's going to happen if we do that.
Thank you. Mr. Willett, 30 seconds.
Very briefly, the MCAS is the standard for the planet. Not only the United States, but for the planet. We compete against Asian countries and European countries. We're the best in the nation. Okay? The national testing standards that they wanted to implement, it allowed the individual states to implement their own standards. That was an absolute race to the bottom. We have the best students across the country, and we compete effectively with Asia and Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. Anybody like to 20 seconds of response? I'll give you. All right, Mr. Nuccio.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to agree with Mr. Willett on this thing. What happened was Massachusetts was entered in the world competition as a separate country, basically, just Massachusetts, and we finished second in the world. Why are we going to touch something that's not broken?
All right, thank you. Are we ready to move on to the next question? Mr. Manzi.
Thank you. And this is for all 4 candidates, and Gretchen can pick the first victim. If elected mayor, would you attempt to change the public safety mutual aid agreements that commit Methuen to respond to public safety issues in the city of Lawrence?
Mr. Nuccio, you have 1 minute.
You know, I'm a big fan of mutual aid. There's times we're going to need help. There's times other people need help. It's called being a good neighbor. Yes, Lawrence is a little bit of a blight right now on the rest of the Merrimack Valley, and it's taxing everybody's systems. But you know what? We might need help someday from Andover, North Andover, Lawrence. Who knows? And you know what? I'm a good neighbor. I like my neighbors where I live, and I think we should be a good neighbor as a city, and I think we should stay in the mutual aid system.
Thank you, Mr. Willett.
I believe my comment started this process. It started with Representative Linda Need Campbell. The governor's office has been silent on this issue. He promised 1,000 cops on the streets in Massachusetts. He has not fulfilled that campaign promise. It starts with community policing. Lawrence is a war zone, and we got to wake up to that fact. I would never jeopardize law enforcement personnel, and we would send those police officers into harm's way. I would directly blame the governor. There should be state police in Lawrence. There should be 1,000 cops on the streets across Massachusetts. He's absolutely failing us on that issue. Thank you.
Mr. Zani, you have 1 minute.
I believe in mutual aid. I think when we talk about a neighboring city, Lawrence, they have to get their act in order. It's not so much from the state level. Look at the way in terms their government is being run right now. You're talking about the nightclubs and such. They have to actually close these nightclubs or revoke some of the licenses in that community in order to bring safety to that community. But I believe in mutual aid. If Methuen had a problem, if you think back to the Malden Mills, again, surrounding communities are very important. But I think that Lawrence itself has to do a better job. And that's up to them to do that. I think they're trying to take steps now. But I think the end result of that is they have to do things to improve their own situation.
Okay, Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
Yeah. In terms of the fire department, we've been giving mutual aid with Lawrence for many, many, many years. During the Feast of the Three Saints, I've talked to some Lawrence police officers, and they were telling me they have concerns about the safety of our police officers down there because our radios don't match their radios, and they have no idea where our guys are. So my fear is, as a police officer, our guys could get very, very hurt down there, and they wouldn't even know where they are. So I'm against mutual aid as far as the police department goes, but I support it as far as the fire department goes.
All right, I want to thank you all for your answers. We're going to move on. Mr. Cioni, you have your one last question.
The Methuen High School project, this is to all candidates, and Gretchen, you can pick where it starts. The Methuen High School project, by state law, must pay labor under the state prevailing wage law. Analysts say that law likely adds between 10 to 20% to the labor cost of such a project. That could be a higher bill for the Methuen High School project, over $5 million. As mayor, would you request that the state prevailing wage law be modified to exclude municipalities?
All right, we're going to start with, let's see who hasn't started yet. Mr. Cronin, you've got a minute.
No, I don't propose changing the mutual aid law. The unions have been steadfast in this country for many, many years, and I think everybody would be working for minimum wage if they weren't involved in our system. So I would not propose that we change the minimum, the prevailing wage law.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nuccio, you have a minute.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would be in favor of doing that for municipalities. I've been in business 30 years. Twice the unions tried to come into my factory and unionize, and my guys voted them down. They didn't want the unions in because I treat them well. I don't think Mr. Cronin's, up with the times. There's a lot of good employers out there. We don't all go to minimum wage if the unions don't build our school or build North Andover last year had the roof of the city hall needed to be done. They got a $10,000 quote and were told, no, we can't do that. You have to pay $50,000 because of the prevailing wage. What is wrong with us, folks? We can't be doing this kind of, we're just throwing money away.
Mr. Willett, you have a minute.
There should actually be incentives for cost overruns and not doing those cost overruns. Having construction projects on time and on budget. Too many times you have the lowest qualified bidder come forward and they have cost overruns and time delays and all these shenanigans, and there's no accountability. If a project is on budget and on time, we should have incentives built into that system. It should not be the reverse. Thank you.
Mr. Zani.
Being on the building committee, we've already, as you know, which was the central school is now the freshman for the high school. We came under budget on that particular school as well. And we did use people from the union. There are a lot of people here in Methuen that are union members. They work hard. They have families here. They have homes here. And they deserve their pay as well. So if you look at the building of the new high school, you look at what's happening, we're on budget at this time, and I think in the end result of that, you're going to get a quality school. So I support what is currently being done.
Thank you very much. Ms. Preston?
Oh, I thought you said that was the last question.
No, each of you get one last question,
Oh,
sorry.
we were confused. Hold on, now we have to catch up. Oh, that's the one you were going to ask. Is to all of them. Many believe that that any candidate for mayor who accepts money from Methuen unions, department heads, or employees of town departments limits their effectiveness in dealing with these unions during contract negotiations and fuels political turmoil between elected officials and departments. Do you agree? And should any such contributions be returned?
Okay, with that, we'll start with Mr. Willett.
For the record, I come from a strong union family, but the unions have no leverage with me through the contribution process. I questioned 2 teachers' contracts, 2001 and 2007, then increased during the 4-year duration of each contract 24%. So 2 contracts added 48% cost of living adjustments for teachers, and I was critical of that. We should be part of the GIC, which would save us $2 million. The unions are critical of that. We should have managerial studies of the police and fire department. We should have all these things that if you don't have the contributions given to you, they don't have the leverage over you. Let's have a fresh start. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Zani, you have 1 minute.
I've received contributions from different unions, and I actually thank them. They have confidence in me. The end result of that, it doesn't buy anything. What it does is they're looking at the community as a whole. They're also looking for leadership, and it just brings them in terms of negotiations. The end result of that is that if they have confidence in me and we can negotiate a fair and equitable contract, that's what it's all about. Again, as I stated earlier, a contribution of that, to me, does not buy a vote or does not buy in terms of changing anything at all. So as far as the contributions, especially from the fire department, I thank them, and they have confidence in me along with some of the other unions. So I really appreciate their contributions at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zani. Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
Yes, both Councilor Zani and myself did receive a contribution from the Methuen firefighters. We did not, either one of us, that's to my knowledge, receive an endorsement from them. So this is just a contribution. It doesn't tie me to anything. And I'm sure it doesn't tie Mr. Zani to anything. I do feel that anybody that's up for a new position or up for a position in the community should not be donating to any candidates. I do feel that people on the outside that are due for some contracts, looking for a contract in Methuen, should not be donating to any candidates. And that's where I draw the line.
Okay, Mr. Nuccio, you have 1 minute.
Well, you certainly know I'm not getting any union contributions. Nor do I seek them. I like to I'm the new guy on the block here. I'm the guy coming in with ideas. I'm the guy that's positive and energetic, and I want to try new things. I want to include everybody in the process. That's not that bad. What's wrong with that? I don't understand why I'm running up against so many roadblocks with the unions, because I just want to look. I just want to see what's going on. I just want to find if there's a problem. I just want to see if there's waste. I just want to look. You know, folks, you play 45s, you get in a bad hand, what do you say? Let's shuffle the deck. I just want to shuffle the deck a little bit, look through the cards, that's all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Willett, you're indicating you want 20 seconds to respond.
Very quickly, in the recent settlement, because of pressuring of a union president, cost this community $200,000. If I'm not receiving any endorsements, I'm not costing you anything. Thank you.
Anybody else want 20 seconds? Mr. Zani?
I just hear a new face. It's not a new face. It's 20 years old if you go back in terms of his running. I think the end result of this all is that you have to look at what Methuen is all about. And to me, a contribution is not asking for a vote. What it is, they're looking at confidence in somebody who will lead this community.
Okay, Mr. Danucci, I'll give you 20.
Yeah, it's 52 years old I am, and I'm running towards the problem, not away from the problem.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the last question from the panel. Mr. Manzi?
Thank you. This comes from a constituent who sent it in via Facebook this afternoon, Kathleen Griffin. And her question was this: what will you do to expand recycling in Methuen, and will you work towards a weekly pickup as opposed to the current pickup once every 2 weeks?
Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Zani. You have 1 minute.
The recycling, as far as going to 1 week, again, we'd have to look at cost. I know some of the older residents, they would like to have it every week because the amount of paper or recycling that they do over a 2-week period becomes sometimes cumbersome or heavy. But I'd like to look at that, and if we could do something in terms of 1 week and it would actually help us in the operating budget, I definitely would be for that. So the end result is I think that's something to look at. A good example so far also has been with the trash. Keeping in mind, we just changed our trash individual, and we saved this year $300,000 we went out to bid. So we do have a new company that's picking up our trash, keeping in mind that we're saving $300,000 this year. So those are things I think we should be looking at.
Thank you. Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
Yes, we did save $300,000 this year, and I guess it's sometimes they pick up the trash. Because for the first 2 weeks, all I got was phone calls. The trash was not picked up. And I'm not sure if we're saving any money or not, because we had to send our TPW guys out, showing them the routes, showing them where they missed, and hopefully, Mr. Mayor, you will start to assess some fines next week. Thank you. And I do support weekly pickup.
There's money in trash, folks. I've been running my own trash trucks for 30 years, 25 years. I've been running my own trash trucks. We make enough trash in my business that we do it ourselves. We recycle ourselves. Scrap steel gets you $250 a ton now. Copper's at $3 for dirty copper. There's money in trash. We need to expand our trash program. There's a new revenue source we need to be working on right there.
Mr. Willett?
We should be promoting single-stream recycling. We don't know what the percentage of participation is. We should put inserts in the water bill and say, let's, for example, 25% is the participation rate, and we're saving $85,000. If we doubled it, we would be doubling the $85,000. Not only that, as you're doing more recyclables, which is becoming profitable, whether it be rubber, or cans, or bottles, or paper, or cardboard. At the same time you're recycling, single-stream recycling, your tipping fees are going down. And the issue that Jack and Steve should work on is that you had a driver and 2 people helping in the back of the garbage trucks. There's a driver and 1 person. You do the math. They're not doing the job right now for the trash pickup. Get this straightened out.
Okay, I'm going to give Mr. Zani and Mr. Cronin, do you guys want a chance to respond to that? Do you want 20 seconds?
I'm all set.
Okay. kidding.
All right, Ms. Cronin, you're all set. All right, beautiful. All right, with that, that concludes our panelist questions. At this point, because we are running along already, we are going to allow the candidates to ask 2 questions. You guys can direct them to a particular candidate. You can direct them to everybody else on the board. We are going to start, we're going to go back and forth here. So we're going to start with Mr. Zani. You have the first question, and the first response will get a minute. Everybody else will get 30 seconds.
We have a chance to respond at the end.
Yes, yes. You also get 30 seconds to respond.
What are your thoughts on a human resource / assistant city solicitor?
Mr. Cronin?
As I stated in our last debate, I will not fill that position, nor will I fill the position of Community Development Director. That those 2 positions are worth $250,000. I don't think at this time that we should fill those positions.
Thank you. Mr. Nuccio.
If I remember correctly, we have a human resource director that was going to do both jobs, and we paid her more money to do that, and now we're going to add a person because she couldn't do it. Are we, I guess the question is, I can answer the question, are we going to take the money away from that position to help pay for the new position? But in general, I'm really not for it.
Thank you. Mr. Willett.
I'll sit down with Peter McQuillan and see if we can acquire on a part-time basis an experienced trial attorney. The person slated for that position has no trial experience recently in winning cases. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is, if you look at the lawsuits over the years, it's been mishandling the civil service appointments, pressuring for endorsements, political donations, Brooks Pharmacy, Chief Solomon. A lot of it, the nucleus, is politics. The mayor should work with the police chief and the fire chief, but let them do their jobs. Once and for all, let them do their jobs. They're professionals. They don't need the meddling from the mayor's office for political endorsements or donations or anything of that nature. Most qualified person who's a veteran, hopefully Methuen's resident, scores high in the civil service. That's it, by none.
Thank you. Mr. Zani, you have 30 seconds.
The reason why I support this position is twofold, and I've talked to our solicitor. We have outsourced to date, over these past few years, a total cost of $594,000 gone. We still have some outstanding lawsuits yet, which could bring that total up to $779,000. The end result, to have a human resource / assistant solicitor, now we have someone else who will have to know municipal law that will save us an awful lot of money as opposed to outsourcing as we have been doing over a period of time.
Thank
so
you,
I think,
Mr. Zani. We're going to move on to the next question. Mr. Willett, your question of the candidates.
This question would be directed at Steve. Steve, in your history as a city councilor, have you ever voted against a tax increase? And give the specific year.
Yeah. You voted for a tax increase, as you know, over the last 2 years, and it was mentioned in the question. You also, the first 2 years of the city council, you voted for a tax increase. You sure did. You better look at your record.
Let's let Mr. Zani talk. You will have time to respond.
The end result, you also voted for a large increase with the school department, along with a $600,000 cost for shoveling off snow off roofs, which should have been gone out for bid. The end result, yes, I have voted, especially the last 2 years, where people took 10% cuts over a 2-year period of time, and I most definitely voted for that budget. And if you go back 2 years ago, if it wasn't for my vote, they were going to shut down the government in a particular day due to the fact that they were going to close down the senior center and some of the other places. So I did vote for the budget, especially over the last 2 years, where individuals took 10% cuts across the board.
Okay, Mr. Willett, you can have 30 seconds.
8 years as a city councilor, never voted against a tax increase. I've done it, okay? To invoke a shutdown of government, let the government be shut down. If you're going to constantly increase people's property taxes, they're going to have to shut down their homes, for crying out loud. Year after year. We talked about the seniors, 4 years, no cost of living adjustment. People downsize, people being laid off. They don't have the resources, Steve. Come on, grow up to reality.
All right, Mr. Cronin, would you like a little time? Mr. DiNuccio? All right, Mr. Cronin, you're up next if you want it.
Oh, sure. I voted to support the budgets. I did vote on individual, I shouldn't say individuals, but different parts of that budget, voted decreases. I voted against $850,000 worth of contracts for union contracts that would have increased our taxes. So I guess that's a vote against higher taxes. I did support the budget. I do feel that voting no on the budget is an easy cop-out vote. If you couldn't make $1 million worth of cuts yourself in the budget, how can you stand there at the end and just vote no and leave the responsibility to somebody else?
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. Mr. DiNuccio, would you like 30 seconds? All right, well, you've got the next question.
Okay, I got a softball question for all three candidates. Are you familiar with the Rail Trail plan? And if so, do you support it?
Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
The what plan?
Rail Trail.
Yes, I do support Rail Trail. I have met with the people at Rail Trail. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be speaking with the people from the VFW and the union that own the building, the old train station, because they want to do some renovations to the overhang, and they're having some problems getting the okay from those people, even though it won't cost them any money. So I am on board with the Rail Trail. I support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Mr. Willett.
The wonderful thing about the rail trail is that it's self-sufficient. You take up the old stakes from the railroad tracks. The metal from the railroad tracks will pay for the restoration of the rail for people. And we got to think outside the box. People talk about tax increases. If we join the GIC, that's a $2 million savings. If we do advertising and naming rights, okay, you could raise revenue. We should be approaching nonprofit, foundation, corporations for grants. The government revenue is dwindling. It's going to do it for the next 5 years. The federal government has to balance its budget. The state government is relying upon the federal government. We have a 5-year recovery. We have to look at everything. We just can't give an excuse of, well, we had some formulas, here's your tax bill, have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr.
Can't do that
Willett.
anymore.
Mr. Zani.
I've had an opportunity to meet with Joyce, who heads it up here locally in Methuen, and I definitely believe in the rail trail, but there are a couple of things there that have already, I think, starting to be accomplished. When I spoke to her and actually went out on the trail by the old train depot, we have some properties, you know, where Shardy's was. There's a big brick building on the side. And the individual that owns that land was originally going to put up another restaurant, but it became too costly. But he does have another building next to it. And he's starting to talking about a steakhouse that has 2 floors, if you know the building I'm talking about on that site. And he's talking about the possibility of building a steakhouse along that rail trail, and that will bring another business in the community. So I support it, and I think the end result of that will be something that will enhance our community.
Thank you very much, Mr. DiNuccio. 30 seconds.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is to give Ms. Joyce Godsey and her crew a little plug there, because they are doing really, really good work. It's actually part of a bigger plan, though. If you picture Methuen being a butterfly, the body of the butterfly is the actual rail trail. Surrounded by that will be the open space plan, where they will have a trail that goes actually around the whole perimeter of Methuen, and it'll all be connected by the rail trail. It's a really great project. They got a river cleanup coming up September 24th. They need a ton of help. I believe they're meeting down by the Organ Hall, 9 o'clock in the morning, September 24th. Clean up the Spigot River. If anyone could help out, please show up down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DiNuccio. Next question comes from Mr. Cronin.
Yes, I guess to everyone. The Methuen School Department just got finished this past fiscal year using stimulus money to offset their budget to the tune of $2 million. What will you recommend to the superintendent to make up for that lost revenue?
Mr. DiNuccio, you have 1 minute.
Absolutely continuing getting the children out of the school system that do not belong in our school system. We are mandated by the state to pay X amount of dollars per pupil in our school system. I still believe we have a lot of students. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact we have a lot of students that do not belong in our school system. That's the easiest way to drop the cost. We pay per student.
Thank you, Mr. Willett.
Well, thank you, Al, for applauding my program. Evan Chasen is here tonight. We co-sponsored the residency enforcement policy that kicked out at least 150 students, saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had a policy in place that if a person was working in the school system, their child could attend the school system even though they lived outside of Methuen. Chapter 70, it's based on the numbers. You as Methuen residents were paying for those students, even though they live outside Methuen and even though the parents work in the system. It's still based on numbers. There's a constant vigilance with our residency enforcement. The other issue I want to try to highlight very briefly, $1.3 million because of a health care deficit, because we did not join a GIC, the school department had to swallow that $1.3 million health care deficit. That should have gone directly into the classrooms.
I'm sorry, Mr. Willett, but you're over the time. Mr. Zani, you have 1 minute.
I think the question has been, when the stimulus money runs out at the end of the year, how are you going to do that? As far as students, that's not going to answer the question. You have 81, whatever it was, definite help. But that's not going to answer the question for next year. I think in terms of the health insurance, which we had planned design this year, as you know, the state at the end of June did pass it in terms of being able to go to GIC. That's something I think all the unions should be looking at next year. I, as mayor, will definitely look at that because that will save us $1 million next year, which will help the cost. The second thing that has to be done when you look at the school enrollment is that you have to look at their the actual amount of money they received in terms of percentage increase. I think you have to really negotiate that, and maybe nothing over the next year, probably zero, because that union received 3%, whereas the other unions throughout the city received 0. So I think those type of things are going to have to be done in order to make up the $2 million deficit due to the fact that the stimulus money will run out June 30th. I applaud the superintendent for doing it over a 2-year period. A lot of communities did it over 1 year, and they are in that dilemma this year as opposed to
Thank
at
you,
the end of the
Mr.
year.
Zani. Mr. Cronin, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, well, basically, the lowest enrollment, or the kids that got terminated from the school, actually helped us this year because what happens is on October 1st of every year, you submit to the state that your enrollment figures, and they reimburse you based on those numbers. So those students were paid for by the state before they got terminated from the school. So we actually made money on them last year. This year will be another story, but it will not come to $2 million. And I too have all the confidence in the world in the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. Actually, we're going to reverse order here, and Mr. Cronin, you will have this first of the second round of questions.
I have no more questions. I'll pass.
All right. Okay, Mr. Nuccio, you have the next question.
Okay, for all three candidates again. Please explain what you think the principles of open government are.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Willett. You have 1 minute.
Not taking money from people found guilty of ethical violations, open televised meetings, obeying the open meeting law, and not having side discussions about the budget, having an open door policy with the residents of Methuen, traveling to the homes of residents, having open office hours at the senior center and the housing authority, meeting with the police chief and the fire chief and not talking about donations. Talk about professionalism. We need a restoration of that. And vigilance in the defense of accountability is not the wrong thing. It's a good thing. As American citizens, we question our government. That's a positive, constructive thing that we should continue to practice. It's not being a naysayer. It's not being negative. We should hear more of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. Mr. Zani, you have 1 minute.
I believe in an open door policy, no question. I've been a city council now for 6 years. A lot of you here in the audience and people that are hopefully listening or watching on TV have an opportunity to see what I have done over the course of 6 years. I bring that forth. There's nothing here to hide. The end result is bringing this community together as we in a positive outlook. Some people talk about division in this community. Time and time again over the past few months, people love this community. They want it to move forward. They have questions and concerns, which all of us do. But I think those things in the end can be answered in a very reliable way, and I hope to do that.
Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I believe that the mayor, along with his department heads, should, on a 6-month basis, take City Hall out into the districts, meet with the people, ask any and all, let them ask any and all questions that they want, have the department heads go forward with them and tell them what's happening in their neighborhoods. So everybody should have full knowledge of whatever's going on in their community and in their government.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cronin. Would you like 30 seconds,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Nuccio?
Transparency, participation, collaboration. We make everything transparent. We see what's going on. Then we participate. And then we as a group collaborate to solve the problem. Open government principles, transparency, participation, collaboration. We work together and collaborate for a solution.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question will come from Mr. Willett. This is your last question.
Okay. Very grassroots campaign. We raised a good amount of money, but not next to some candidates. This is my agenda. This was in Methuen Life. You know, please
Are you
forgive
gonna,
us. Forgive us.
you better get to your question.
Okay, but this is my agenda. Mr. Zani had 2 glossy handouts. He did not talk about his agenda. I want to give Mr. Zani the opportunity tonight to talk about his issues, specifically his agenda for the citizens of Methuen, and that could be to anyone else. I know Al had a flyer. I know Jack had his advertisement, but let's talk about the agenda.
Okay, each candidate has 1 minute to talk about their agenda. Mr. Willett, you'll have 30 seconds.
And again, it's here. It's www.
All right, thank you. Mr. Zani, you can answer now.
I've stated before, in terms of my administration, I look at bringing all the department heads in a weekly meeting. Secondly, finding out about their budgets. At a 6-month period, we'll have a review of all the departments. The end result, we work together. Each and every week, we should know what each department is doing. We can work collectively together as opposed to letting each department work by themselves. So that's the initial thing I would do. At the end of the year, there will be a performance evaluation of each department head within that department. See what goals and objectives they've met, along with their performance in that department. And did they save money? Some departments at the end of the year have money left over, and what they end up doing, of course, is they try to spend it. I'm looking at saving money in the end, and the only way you're going to do that is on a week-to-week discussion with each department head, along with a 6-month review and end-of-the-year performance evaluation of each department with that budget. And that way you can trace from 1 year to the next, along with from 1 month to the next with their budget.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cronin, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I believe that the mayor should not be an island. He should not be the mayor by himself. I believe he should work very, very closely with the city council on a weekly basis, informing them of any and all information going on in their districts and in their community. I believe that we should open up some government some more, and I believe that boards and commissions, maybe we should have some new opportunities for new people to apply for these positions, for these jobs. And I pledge to be open and honest with everyone and not to mislead anyone on any item.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nuccio, 1 minute.
As mayor, I will not present a budget to the city council that requires a property tax increase. That's a full-time job, making that happen, folks. That's my agenda. It's going to happen in many, many ways, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of help and a lot of people working together for the same cause to make sure that we do not raise our property taxes anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Willett, you have 30 seconds.
Very briefly, Steve, this sounds very familiar to my agenda. Introducing legislation requiring every city department to produce a yearly report outlining cost savings that they have implemented or proposed to reduce duplication and waste. It's right there. So do you support my agenda? It's right there.
I don't know what your agenda is.
It's right there, Steve. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Zani, he's asking.
Again, rhetoric. Take a look back in May when I first announced. It came out then, not before you put something in the newspaper. The end result, I think I presented everything in a very conscientious manner, along with a professional style. And I actually gave this prior to you putting anything in a newspaper. So keep that in mind. But again, rhetoric goes a long way.
All right, thank you. Mr. Zani, you have the last question.
Mr. D'Annunzio, if you would, please explain how you're going to institute a zero-based budget.
You know, everybody talks about fixed costs. You know, in business, there really are no fixed costs. Even though they're called fixed costs, let's talk about a fixed cost. Electricity is a fixed cost. Everybody in business will tell you electricity is a fixed cost. But can we save electricity? I believe the mayor's bringing some solar panels, is that what's coming, solar panels to the landfill? Help lower our electric costs. Well, yesterday they were a fixed cost. Today, they're not fixed anymore because we're going to lower them. So, you know, fixed costs move. Mr. Cronin, Mr. Zani, they both talk about, you have fixed costs? That's it, that's the budget. So how many times have we heard, I don't want to raise your taxes, but I have to? I don't get it. You know what? We have to do things. We can't be stagnant as a community anymore. We need to be progressive. We need to be proactive. And that's what I want to do. Give me a chance. Give me 2 years, folks. 2 years. If I don't do what I say I'm going to do, if I can't do this, I can't keep your taxes down,
Mr. D'Annunzio,
I will
you're out
not
of
run
time.
for office for a second
Mr.
term.
Zani, would you like to respond to that? You have 30 seconds.
The old, think about George Bush years back. Read my lips, no new taxes. We know what happened with that. What you have to look at is a reality here. No one wants to raise taxes. No one here on this table here wants to raise taxes. The end result is, again, I asked you specifically about your budget, and I told you already so you'll know and understand, Chapter 44 of the state law, you cannot institute that. So please read up on your laws as well. Thank you.
Anybody else like to chime in on that one? All right, we're going to go to closing statements. We will start with Mr. Zani. Each candidate will have 1 minute. Mr. Zani, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. This campaign isn't about me or about rehashing old political battles. It's about believing in the future of Methuen and working hard to achieve our full potential. My education, positive outlook, and delivery of my experience sets me apart from the other candidates. I know that good teams produce winning results. I will maintain an open-door policy for residents and will work with department heads and other public workers to maximize the efficiency of government. I love Methuen, and I want to do my part to make this city a place where our children and grandchildren can prosper and be happy. I have spoken to residents throughout the Methuen and am humbled by their confidence in me. I will work hard every day to provide high-quality service at a fair cost to Methuen taxpayers. That's a promise you can count on. I would appreciate your vote on September 20th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zani. Mr. Willett, you have 1 minute.
Be very careful of the person who's running for office that does not have an agenda, does not advertise an agenda, that sends you out mailers about his background. We all love Methuen. We're here tonight. We're concerned about the future. We're concerned about our children. We're concerned about the schools. We need to provide concrete solutions. I've done that. Residency enforcement, voting against tax increases. All these issues